Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome to the May edition of Molten Music Monthly. There's no specials or shows or rants this month, it's just good old-fashioned music technology. So what do we have? Well, Reason embraces the world, Deckard has a dream, Windows gets a new version and Surface gets a new laptop. Modularism tries to curate some awesome music. Little One gives us a virtual Fattie. Invasors give us a decent synth for Kontakt. Something is going on with MP3 and you can now get sound tattooed onto your body. Let's check it out. Reason and VST. Now those are two words that I've never expected to see put together in a positive light, and yet here we are. We've made it. Version 9.5 is going to bring support for VST plugins and VST instruments into Propellerhead Reason. It's extraordinary. I can't believe it. All of the years, all of the column inches they've put into explaining why that VST is a bit kind of crappy and shouldn't be anywhere near their glorious synthesizer workstation. You know, they've been constantly trying to convince us that their rack extension is a plugin format that you really need to be going for because it provides so much more than VST could ever dream or imagine. And yet every time they release a new version of the product, everyone goes, oh, have they included VST plugins yet? Which of course they haven't until now. It's unexpected, unprecedented. No one had seen that coming, I don't think. Although many of us have been wishing for it for an awful long time. I mean, of course you can use Reason via Rewire through to any other door you like and then use all your VST plugins and VST instruments in that way. Beautiful, that's worked for decades. Always worked, really nice, except for the fact you need to be running 2 doors. And honestly, that just gets annoying after a while, and I think that Propellerheads have finally felt that. They've felt the move that people go, yeah, Reason is great, but I actually have to do other work in here because I own thousands of pounds worth of software plugins and instruments and I can't use them in Reason. So I'm always going to be drawn somewhere else, so I don't always come back to Reason, and so, you know, Reason just drops off the radar for a lot of people. But of course the most difficult thing in all of this is how do you cram a VST instrument into the Reason synth rack thing interface? And what they've done, I think, is really quite beautiful. They've created a VST device which you drop into the rack like any other instrument or effect or jiggery pokery thingy that goes on inside Reason, and you and that acts as the interface to the GUI, and then you can trigger the GUI and load that up and do whatever you like. But within this VST device, within the rack, they've sort of put all of the audio inputs and outputs, so you can use it as the same as you can a rack extension within Reason. So it has audio inputs that you can plug in the back so you can properly connect it up, because it's not being inserted into the mixer like you would with a normal plugin in a normal door. It's going to sit in the rack as a device, so you're going to need that audio routing on the back to know where its inputs and outputs are going to and where for and where through and such like. But also it pulls out their sort of virtual CV patch points. So any modulation or control or presumably sort of MIDI implementation can be realized on the back in these patch points, which means you can patch it into their other devices as well. And that's sort of genius and also completely vital. I don't think they could have achieved it in any other way. It had to be a full-on taking a VST instrument or audio effect and somehow getting that to work within the workflow of Reason. And they've done that, and it looks fabulous. It's not out until the end of the week, so I haven't yet been able to have a go to work out exactly what it can and cannot do, but you know, it looks pretty spot on. I mean, obviously it's ridiculous that this has not been with us before. I mean, I do sort of feel a little bit for the software developers who have embraced the rack extension, because I'm not sure if that offers anything more. Maybe there's a deeper level of integration or a deeper level of something or other that still makes that worthwhile. But otherwise, I imagine that format's going to be completely deserted. And there are some developers who have committed themselves to it, and I wonder how they feel about that. But for the rest of us, it's just kind of like Reason VST, woohoo! So for no other reason than for the fact that I love Blade Runner and I adore the Vangelis soundtrack, that I'm going to point out Deckard's Dream. Now, Deckard's Dream is a fantastic clone of a fantastic synthesizer built by a fantastic man called Roman Filipov, I think, from Sputnik Modular. He's put together a clone of the Yamaha CS80, which is the synthesizer favoured by Vangelis on his pad-strewn Blade Runner soundtrack and other stuff as well. I was a massive fan when I was a kid. It was kind of like the first music I really got into. And so I'm kind of sort of deeply affected by the idea that this synthesizer is being built with those kind of ideas in mind, with the Blade Runner soundtrack and with that kind of idea and that time and everything to do with that world and environment is really appeals to me. Because a lot of the components were proprietary or not available now, he's had to build in sort of wave shaping technology to emulate the instability of the oscillators, which is pretty awesome when you have to build problems into your synthesizer. But of course you can also turn that off, so you can use it in a very pure way or in a very kind of crappy way like the original, which is nice. We love that kind of level of authenticity. When Roman was first talking about this on forums and he was working on his prototype, there was a lot of discussion about features that need to be in there to make it truly CS80-esque. I mean, things like the CS80 had this polyphonic aftertouch and MPE type control, sort of very uncommon and very new and unique at the time. And so Roman has now developed that sort of thing into the finished product. He's also built an expander for it, a 1U expander which contains a lot of analog effects, but also 16 patch points, CV patch points for control and integration into modular analog synthesizers. You know, it really is sort of a masterpiece of synthesizer reinvention. And I love the angle he's gone for, I love the marketing he's put together for it. It's just a superb little project. Now, initially, I saw the price was about $1,200. I thought, wow, that's amazing, $1,200. This is really could be something that's reachable to an awful lot of people. However, it turns out that that was actually just a deposit. You put down 1,200 bucks for a deposit on the real thing. The actual thing is going to cost more like 4,000, which I suppose is probably what it should cost because of the kind of the size, the quality, and the work that's gone into it, and the hardwareness of it. Then that's probably the right price point, unless of course it was done by Behringer, in which case it would be $499, I imagine. And maybe that's to come. We don't know. They've been hinting at a synthesizer very recently which has a few sliders on it, like the CS80. Let's hope not, or let's hope so. I don't know. I don't know how to hope about Behringer anymore. Anyway, this is a different thing. This is very much a hand-built, lovingly crafted, not mass-produced synthesizer. It takes about 3 months to build one, apparently, so if you get your order in now, then you'll probably see one at the end of the summer. You can also buy it as a kit. I mean, it looks a bit daunting. There's some massive PCBs in there, but it's certainly cheaper at about $1,000 to get all the component parts, although I don't think that includes the front panel or the case. But I'm unsure about that at the moment. But you can put down a couple of $100 as a deposit on the kit version. And so if you're a little bit handy with a soldering iron, that could be a cheaper way of getting into some of those gorgeous, lovely Blade Runner soundscapes. Microsoft had a little launch event quite recently that I wasn't invited to, which is a shame. I think we may have fallen out. I'm not sure. I don't know. I just keep going on about this Surface stuff and I just do my best, and every now and again I get invited to massive parties in New York and sometimes I don't, and I try not to feel bad about that. So anyway, they launched a brand new Surface laptop. Now Panos, the Surface guy, the Microsoft Surface boss if you like, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. He seemed to be almost in hysterics with his sort of passion and admiration for his team and the product and what they've put together. It was just kind of like his, you know, if his chest was a cannon, he would have shot his heart upon the Surface laptop. It was something that he kind of gave birth to live on telly. Anyway, let's not go into that. It's really good to see someone, you know, praise the team behind a product like that, someone who points out the developers, someone who points to all the people who came up with a fantastic product that it's then his job to to show to the world, who's obviously very excited by it. And it seems to me to be, you know, it's a great laptop. But it's a laptop, you know, and there's a lot of laptops. You know, and so for me, it's somehow less interesting. I mean, let me tell you why. It's great. It's a laptop, it's got a furry keyboard, we all like a bit of fur, that's fine, and it's got a great screen that's a touch screen, and of course those touch elements come into play, except that they don't. See, that's the problem with a touchscreen laptop, is that you don't get the touch experience. It's not there. You push against the screen goes away, or it wobbles. You have to hold it with one hand, as you saw in all of the demos, and then you have to hold it and then you can write on it, or you lay your arm on it and then you can write on it. And so the creativity, the pull into that screen isn't there. You know, the touch screen element just becomes handy for tapping on buttons in a browser, you know, when you're surfing the internet or when you're saying okay to something. And that's fine, that's okay, that's a use of touch, but it's not a creative use of touch. It's not bringing you in to use the pen, to use your fingers in any kind of creative or manipulative, different experience kind of way. It's not, there's no augmented reality there. It's purely becomes a little bit of a tool and enhancement to the mouse and keyboard. And that's why, for me, it's not really going to be special. I mean, the Surface Pro 4, the Surface Pro range, it's special. The touch on it is fantastic. It's rigid. You stick it on your desk because of the kickstand, you touch it, you can use both hands, you don't have to hold it steady. It's just going to be there, and it works at any angle, up or down, on your lap or not, on the desk, on your arm. You can hold it in one hand and do it. You know, it's the perfect touch experience. The touch and pen, digital pen, making a sound, it's there. That works. That's designed to do it, and it's perfect. The Surface Book is almost the same. You have the same laptop problem with pushing it away or wobbling, but at least you can take it off, turn it around, slap it down, and you have this console view, which is a perfect place for creativity, for creating, for drawing, for manipulating, for moving synthesizers around and knobs and buttons and levers and stuff. Surface laptop, clamshell thing, no, it's not really going to work, because you have to hold it steady. So, you know, it's a laptop. It looks like a great laptop. It looks like they've done a great job on producing a laptop which is going to be at a decent price, at a decent specs, and you know, off you go. Will it work for music? Well, of course I don't know, do I? I'd only ever going to know if someone can send one to me so I can plug things in and install some software and try it out. It's always the same answer to that question. Will it work? I don't know. I must try it out. So yeah, quite possibly, but we just don't know. Someone has to give it a go. The other factor thrown into the mix was a brand new version of Windows 10. Yes, I know they said there was only ever going to be one version of Windows 10, but there's already Pro and Home, isn't there? And now there's S. S stands for, I don't know, stupid? No, silly? Oh, funny. No, who knows? Cut down, slim, streamlined. Streamlined, I think that's the word they're going for. The idea of Windows 10S is simply to make it only run Windows Store software. So provided it's available in the Windows Store, then it will run fine. It's the walled garden approach that Apple used with iOS on the iPad and iPhone, in that you can only run the software that's listed and approved and tested and completely compatible within the store. And that's awesome. That means you're never going to have those problems with incompatibilities. You're never going to have the system locking up because of a weird piece of software or a strange background resource thing going on. You're never going to have all that crapware coming in when you accidentally install something from some dodgy website, which then brings in a whole load of other crap all at the same time. All of that is gone. All of that tech support that you do, if, like me, you're kind of the family and friends IT expert, and you're forever, you know, sorting out people's laptops because it's just full of crap. You're never going to have to do that anymore, because that's not going to happen. The software will be curated. It'll only install stuff that works and is good, and it's just going to be designed to work flawlessly, like the iPad does, you know, like iOS products do, like I guess Android tablets do. It's that kind of computing experience that they're going for, and that has a lot of merit. I know a lot of people who would benefit greatly from that. For music, no, it's a load of rubbish. It's never going to work, because simply there are no music apps in the Windows Store. There is FL Studio Mobile, and that's great, that's fine, but that's it. You're not going to be able to install your VST instruments. You're not going to be able to install your VST plugins. You will not be able to install the software that came with your audio interface or the drivers. None of that will be installable because it's not available through the Windows Store. So until the Windows Store fills up with wonderful musical applications, and until Microsoft work out how to create low latency drivers for everybody and every audio interface within Windows, then Windows 10s and the Windows Store it's simply a non-starter. It's not going to get you anything or anywhere. So for the moment, Windows 10s gets the massive thumbs down from me as far as useful for music production. Fabulous for my dad, fabulous for your friends and family who are always messing up their systems, fabulous. But for music making, no, it ain't gonna work. So this is a quick shout out to Modularism. Now Modularism is a project curated by Phil Dixon, Earl of Law and Order Records, where he's put together the most amazing compilation box set of the best modular artists who are currently out there. I mean, covering a wide selection of diverse musical styles and genres. He's pulling together 6 albums worth of cool electronic, experimental and musical coolness into a single box set. It's a fabulous thing. I mean, it's all on high quality, heavy vinyl, all individually numbered. There's going to be only 500 of these available, and I think it's an extraordinary resource. It's kind of like both a snapshot and a showcase of the sort of incredible sounds that these forms of synthesis and this movement and this community can create. And it's not all samey, noise, squik, squik. No, it's massively diverse in the sort of music that's possible and is being created out there right now. And a lot of this stuff is hard to find. I've found it really difficult to find good examples of modular music to listen to sort of soak in, to greater, expand my mind on what's possible and what I could be aiming for and aiming to do. So this, for me, is an awesome project. I mean, it's 6 vinyl albums, so it's kind of a crowd-funded project. It's not been done yet. All the music has been gathered, but in order to produce the records, they're essentially looking for support and pre-orders. I guess that's how it works. And so the price for the entire box set is £85. Now that seems a lot, but for 6 full albums, you'd usually pay 20 quid for an album these days on vinyl. So in that regard, it's not quite so bad. And I think it's worth it. I think this is an amazing musical time that we are in the presence of. And I think to capture it at this point is completely awesome, because as it becomes more mainstream, it'll kind of get watered down and it will become more obvious and familiar and more part of the mainstream, and that's not really going to do it a great deal of good. I mean, more people may get to hear about it, but it also has this effect of making things sound a bit more the same. So I think at this particular time and space, the diversity and the possibilities that are emerging from this sort of music are amazing and worth having, I think, on vinyl, because it's then more intentional. I mean, from my point of view, when I listen to vinyl, it's something that I do on purpose, whereas with any other form of music in any other device, it's just kind of background, or it's on, or it's, you put it on in the car or whatever. But when I put on a piece of vinyl, I want to sit down and listen to it, and that's why I'm interested in this. That's why it's taken my money, and I would encourage you to do the same. It is also available on CD and as a download, if you just want to throw in a few quid, that's fine. But I think the real deal is the box set. Have to do it. Yeah. This is a super cool little virtual instrument based upon the Moog Little Fattie. Sounds flipping amazing. It has this amazingly analog hardware feel to the sound that's coming out of it. Now, I know we're always going on about the authenticity in software and how all these manufacturers and companies are trying to sort of sample the heck out of things or model the soul, the very soul of a hardware instrument and stick it in the software for us. And, for the large part, it all sounds pretty great. But there did seem to be something in here that was special, that really seemed to appeal to me. I mean, they say that they have modelled all of the inaccuracies and all the instability of the oscillators so that every time you hit the same note, you will not actually hear exactly the same sound. Now, does that actually happen? Oh, I don't know. Maybe there's just a, you know, something that's just moving a single parameter around. Who knows? But it sounded pretty good to me. Now, I can't ever say that I'm a really good judge of these things because I just generally like stuff. And so having a positive attitude to these sorts of sounds doesn't make for a heavy critique of exactly whether that filter sweep is exactly how it should be. I don't know. It just sounded fat and it sounded great and I enjoyed playing with it. And of course, they've added to the little Fattie features. It's no longer a monosynth, it's now a 4-voice polysynth. They've added a sequencer and a trance gate and some analog effects to make it all sound lush and lovely. But they've kind of kept to the hardware interface. Now, I know authenticity and all that, we're trying to stay true to the hardware, but the thing with the little Fattie is that its hardware controls are a pain in the arse because they have a single knob and then a panel of 4 or 5 buttons for selecting it to be different things. And they have another panel with a knob and another panel with a knob. And that's great in hardware because that's a cost-saving exercise and you can bring the cost of the hardware down so it's not quite so expensive or complex, which is fine, but in software you don't need to do that. You can have whatever you like in software. So why can't I have 100 knobs, please? Why one knob and these poxy little buttons that I've got to again get down to the mouse to click on and change? And I just find that slightly frustrating. But anyway, other than that, it sounds great. And you can go and download a demo from the website and try it out yourself. Although I have to say that the beeping noise in the demo is a little bit too often for me. You know, it's a little bit saying, this is a demo, you dare think this is anything but, and you're not going to sample even a second of this stuff, mate. So that's a little one 3.0 from Exhum Audio and it's €69. Now I'm getting a bit bored of the Kontakt interface. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of instruments that all use the same factor, big sound set, some modulation, sequencer effects, you know. It's the same thing over and over again. There's some big controls in the middle that morph from here to there, but it's just a bit samey. Anyway, so I get interested when somebody comes up with something that's a little bit different. And Invasors is definitely that. It's from Divergent Audio Group, and they've done everything they can to make it look like a piece of hardware. So much so that when I first saw this, I kind of thought it was a hardware synth. But it's just a clever rendering thing, and you can even switch a knob in the software and it kind of unfolds in a hardware kind of way. Anyway, the idea is that they've tried to create a very analog sounding synthesizer for Kontakt. Now, is it a synthesizer or is it a set of samples? I'm not sure. They don't seem to talk about it very much, but my assumption is, since Kontakt is a sampler-based instrument, that it's just a whole load of samples with a very clever sort of synthesizer front end to it. So is it actually oscillators or is it samples of oscillators? Oh, I don't know. Anyway, it claims to have 2 of them and it claims to have 128 waveforms which you can mix together in a variety of really interesting and exciting ways. Or at least so they say, but I'm not exactly sure how that actually happens. But anyway, the sounds are super. It comes up with some really sort of juicy analog feel stuff to it, and the hardware interface does give it kind of a vibe that you don't often get from Kontakt. Kontakt is very flat, and it feels like a procedure that you're going through with the editing. You know, there's one page and there's another page and another page. With this, they've stuck it all on the front page. It's got this sort of look that is sort of pointing and poking out of Kontakt, and it gives you the knobs and a screen. The idea is that you have a hardware screen, like an LCD screen you'd find on a hardware synthesizer, and a bunch of knobs to control it. Although actually there's only 4 knobs to control the parameters. Everything else had to be selected in the little screen, which you do with some knobs at the side. And initially that seems, oh, really awesome, it's like a hardware synth, and then you start to remember why you hated the little LCD screens on hardware synths. Because it's all about menu diving, and we hate menu diving, can't stand it. Just give me a knob for everything, and yeah, and I'm a happy person. Whereas now I'm having to knob around to move a cursor on the LCD screen, and then I've got a couple of knobs to move the selected parameters. I don't know, I understand the vibe, trying to get that vibe, and that does come off, and somehow Invasors sort of pulls off this idea in that the hardware nature of it is somehow endearing. It somehow adds to the exploration of that synthesizer. It's interesting, because I like it, I don't like it. Oh, I don't know, what do you think? Is that a good thing? I mean, it's very familiar, so it makes it easy to edit. You're not having to tab through different pages of stuff. It doesn't seem complex, although of course you're dealing with a small menu, which always makes things complex. I don't know, but it sounds really good. I mean, that ultimately is it. It also has this sort of great little sequencer at the bottom, which can run not just notes, but also velocity and gate times and all that sort of stuff. And that's it's sort of built into that front page rather than being another tab page behind, which I really quite like. So I think they've done a really good job of trying to capture the idea of playing with hardware into the Kontakt interface. So that, you know, is worth applause in of itself. So although, you know, I love the way they've kind of subverted the Kontakt interface, maybe it would have been better off had it been its own standalone thing, and then, you know, that doubt over samples and the questions about the implementation of the Kontakt interface and scripting wouldn't have to be a thing to talk about. We could just talk about how great it sounds, which it does, and to you it's about 100 quid. Go and try it out. Now lastly, there's been a lot of chatter about MP3 recently. The Fraunhofer Institute, who were, I think, the inventors of the MP3 codec, codec being the compression and decompression of audio into a smaller format for bit streaming over the internet. It was kind of invented as a way of making sound smaller when the internet was really, really slow, so that we could send files to each other. And it has remained the standard compression format for audio ever since. Everybody uses it. It's in everything. Anyway, Fraunhofer put out a statement saying that they're going to move on to other things. They've kind of like done the MP3 thing now. Some of their patents have expired, and so they're just going to move on dealing with the evolution of MP3, the children and grandchildren of MP3, things like AAC and MPEG-H, apparently. New compression formats, more modern codecs that are doing the job that MP3 used to do, actually much better than MP3 ever did. And they're going to move on with that. Well, sort of the technology news streams grabbed hold of that and started saying that MP3 was dead. They're saying, it's dead, MP3 is dead, it's been put out to pasture, its death warrant has been signed, and now it's the end of everything MP3. And I thought, what? How is that? How is that right? I mean, surely all this means, if anything, is that if Fraunhofer are no longer putting out licenses for MP3, well then the MP3 codec essentially becomes free and open source. And so that's a good thing. If everyone can do it for free, well then surely it becomes even more of the standard that it already is. So I had this brainwave. I thought, I know, I'll drop them an email and see what they say. So I did. It seems to me that no one else actually thought of asking them, because I got this reply from someone going, what? What? Dead? What? Who thought what? They had no idea that people were thinking that MP3 was suddenly dead. They said, well, where did that come from? We didn't say anything of the sort. I went, oh, okay then. So what's it all about? Well, you know, they said that MP3 is part of the ISO open format, so you know it's already there, anyone can use it. That's not a problem. Lots of different software manufacturers make different bits of software for it. So it wouldn't necessarily become free because there's other intellectual technology that goes around those codecs, and so you know that may well still have to continue to be paid for. It's just from their point of view, they're just going to go and focus on this newer, more modern, better, more advanced compression formats. They don't mean any ill will against MP3, and it's not suddenly going to be turned off. No switch is going to go and suddenly your entire collection of 10,000 MP3s which you shared on Napster a decade or so ago are suddenly going to stop working. That's not going to happen. You know, MP3 is staying around. It's the standard. Everybody uses it. Every device supports it. So don't worry, there's no panic. MP3 is not going anywhere. Fraunhofer are just saying, look, we're an institute of brainy people, and so it's right for us to say there's better things than MP3 now. Look what we've invented, AAC and MPEG-H. Let's go forward with those. And you know, if you still want an MP3 license, sure, yeah, we'll issue you one. That's that's not a problem, and we'll continue to support all of the products that we've released and all of the software, and all of our licensees will still get our full backing because MP3 is very much alive, and the rumours of its demise have been greatly exaggerated. Right, that's it for now. Coming soon, we have, well, we've got a whole month worth of Roland products about to be released on us that they've spread out over the next 4 or 5 weeks. That includes a couple of synthesizers. Are they hardware? Are they software? We're not sure at this point, but we'll find out, obviously. And then hopefully this week at some point I'll get a chance to try Reason 9.5. So that's going to be interesting, how they implement that. So yeah, I'll be doing a little bit on that, I imagine. After I've done this and probably had some lunch or something, I'm then going to go and film my Bitwig 2 review, because I've finally written the thing. I've just got to get it onto the camera. So that's exciting. So that'll be coming along very soon, and that will include the 2.1 update as well, which is handy. I've also decided to do a Molten modular update because I've got a few things to talk about with regards to the Molten modular side of things. So I'm going to do that in an individual video, which hopefully I'll get done later this week. So if you're into that side of things, then check that out. So until next time, I'll leave you with Skin Motion Soundwave Tattoos. Go and make some tunes.
You absolutely have to believe. And once you have that belief and that desire, you can conquer anything.
I love you.